Hey, TCBC. I want to take you back to Sunday. For those of you who are here, we've been studying through the book of Hebrews, and we set up a context around Jesus' blood sacrifice by recognizing the norms and constraints of our culture influence what we think on and what we talk about. And something like a blood sacrifice, it's a little hard to take. Well, when we're talking about those cultural norms, those constraints, I was thinking to myself of an example some years back. We were talking at Tri-Cities at that time about sharing the gospel. And it was a season, probably around one of our neighbors and nations, in which we were charging one another to make known. And one of the things that happens every time in our culture as we have that conversation is I hear, well, we've got to build a relationship first. And that's true. Relationships are really important for advancing the gospel. But oftentimes I kept hearing that almost like an excuse, and it just made me curious. What did it look like for Jesus? What were his interactions with other people like? I mean, his ministry was only 3 years, so how are you building relationships with all those people and the multitudes? And so I went back into the New Testament and I did a study. And I want to take just a minute and just kind of walk you through some things and let you think about something. So in this study, I went through all 4 of the Gospels and looked at all the encounters Jesus had with people really outside of the 12 or outside of like the multitude or large groups, say like the Pharisees. So 1, 2, 3 people. And I looked at 2 specific things: who initiated that contact and how long did Jesus engage with them? Did he spend the next 3 years with them? The next moment? What did that look like? So a few things just to keep in mind. 66 of those encounters were initiated by someone else. In other words, they approached Jesus, or they were standing at a well, and there's just something in the context that they initiated that conversation. 66 of them. Only 9 were initiated by Jesus. And 4 of those 9 were teaching illustrations. In other words, he looks out and talks about the children or these healing. That means 5 interactions. That's it. 5 were, again, initiated by Jesus. You see that in the resurrection of the widow's son in Luke 7. You see that of the woman with the disabling spirit in Luke 13. Zacchaeus in Luke 19, the Samaritan woman in John 4, and the lame man at the pool in John 5. That's it, those 5. And of those total 9, Zacchaeus is the only one in which it's explicitly communicated that it goes beyond that moment. So Jesus initiated 5 of these interactions that we're seeing here. One of them might have lasted past a moment. The rest were only then. It's a waiter at a restaurant in our context. It's someone you bump up to in a casual conversation at the grocery store. So keep going. How long then did these interactions normally last? 55 encounters were confined to a single moment. Just a single moment. It happens, it's there, it's minutes, an hour, and it's over. There are only 2 multi-day encounters that were explicitly communicated. The Samaritan woman, Lazarus, or the Samaritan woman's there. There's no mention after that original encounter, but we go back into Samaria, you'd have to think she's there, so she's kind of a bonus. The other one is Lazarus in John 11, and the 2 blind men there in Matthew 20, Mark 10, Luke 18. So again, most of these are a singular moment. We talk a lot about meals, right? 10 meal encounters here. So we see 7 of those 10 are within his inner circle. This is, like people he's constantly with, his 12, those around him. The 3 other meals were all with a Pharisee. They're with religious leaders that he's meeting with. Now there are examples, again, like Zacchaeus, which he almost probably certainly had a meal with, just not explicit. Okay, so what's the point? In Jesus' ministry, almost all of those interactions that he had, those daily interactions, were him reacting to someone in front of him. And they almost all happened and were just confined to that moment. The majority of those types of gospel proclamation conversations didn't happen through 2 or 3 year long relationships. They were made known in a moment. So I know our culture is going to impress upon us that the gospel needs years and years of your relationship, but that's not true. The reality is the power of the gospel can change lives in a moment. So here's the challenge for you this week. Share the gospel. Share the gospel with a waiter, with a friend, a coworker. Just do it. Trust the Lord to do his thing and be faithful in the moment.